My earliest musical memory would be hearing my mother sing in the backyard. Apropos to what I think you mean, it's difficult to say, but I think I would pinpoint it to when I was 9 years old, and my mother took me to Jackson, Mississippi, to hear a great, great lady and great, great artist named Marion Anderson singing recital in Jackson, Mississippi. A total musical experience. That would have been my very first. I knew instinctively when this regal lady artist came out of the wings, I wanted someday to walk like that, to stand like that, and hopefully maybe even sound somewhere near that. It was an essence of, it was a combination of everything that inspired me, I think, to this moment. The dignity of her, and also the fact that it was like on a stage opening up something for me, and I never gave up that vision and hearing what was to be my destiny, in a sense. It wasn't that I wanted to be, it was that one did not aspire to college with the income that was available to my dad and mama. But it didn't matter because they just simply made do and sacrificed and had my brother and myself go to college. Well, we both had scholarships, which means that we worked our way through. And it was better that you learn to be a teacher, because that way you could be placed in a public school and you would have not only an income but a profession. And the voice, thank God, was very, very poignant in some of the choirs in Central State, and caught the attention of my president of at that time, and he advised me perhaps that I should try to pursue a serious career and have my academic degree at the same time. So I merged the two of them. And at one day, that Todd Duncan, a great artist, came into the shall we say, the chapel to be presented, as all of great artists were at that time. And I was sang for that particular occasion, and he advised to get a shall we say, what do you call it, application to Juilliard as soon as possible, so that I would be able to try to go further when I graduated. Cum laude, I might add, from college. It is almost impossible to describe her function in my life and my voice. It was she who taught me to sing, the technical aspects of singing, to also sing on my interest and not my capital, which is the secret to a nuance, I think, even in everyday life. And it has been for a lyric soprano, which I always approach everything, even though there were temptations along the way to sing things that were wrong for me. I always had psychologically this philosophy to sing on my interest, not my capital. It kept the voice where it should be, because in every gift given by the man upstairs, it has a certain qualities that are you as a person, and you should merge those as soon as possible and nourish them each and every time you're out on stage. And with it comes what is, I think, imperative, which I did learn from Miss Kimball at Juilliard, is the thrill of singing your own self, the thrill that you have sending your talent out to the public. yes, I always a little bit frou-frou about my taste in music. I guess that's the only way I could say. Because in my sponsor's home, which I worked in past half time, they gave me access to the radio and the Victrola, and I became enamored with the haute couture of shall we say, classical performances. Added to that, my first experience with Marion Anderson. Then later on, at Juilliard, we were exposed to the very best at all times. Not only to begin building a very wonderful repertoire, but the teachers were so extraordinary to make a rounded professional. The main word professional was always at hand within the sound of your own talent. And Juilliard was very at that time, it was uptown near Riverside Church. And the lists were very short. You had to really have an outstanding talent in any endeavor, art area to get in. So you had to claim your space or it was not a good thing. At that particular time, the Juilliard Orchestra with someone who was also very, very wonderful to teach me how to teach all of us. We were chosen by Maestro Jean Morel, who was the conductor of the Juilliard Orchestra, which still remains, I don't think a student orchestra, just the finest of young talent, you know. And with great aplomb, we were taught to be professionals in the sense of enjoying every time, every experience with every audience each time you came out. That was fervently obvious to all of us from our teachers at Juilliard. The fear object was never, you know, in other words, if you had to be apologetic about singing, then you must try to do something else, because it is the most outgoing sense. Also, to sing, I think, is the most human of the art form delivery substances, shall we say, because it, I think, more than perhaps an instrument which has to be tuned mechanically. You are the tuner, you are the vessel. Everything depends on how you feel as a person. So you must merge those as soon as possible in order to be a complete entity. That frees you to be anything you want to be vocally, because you are so tuned. And the first thing you do, which I did very early, it is not to be conceited. It is not to be impossible. It is for you to hear how beautiful your instrument is, from you to you with much, much love. That way you can send it out to the public, because they make the careers. Once they accept you and your freedom to be and your love of singing, they never leave you. There is no love like that. No one person can give it to you. In the case of my family, yes, but it is a special kind of an affair, shall we say? Not an affair, but a marriage that is ever constant. And you must be true to that. You must have joy to deliver this sound to them each and every time, and make every possible sacrifice for it to be better the next time than it was the present time that you presented to them. And that makes to me that is something that I have even now. At 81, I have things that are, you know, a little creaky now. But once I get in the shower, even now, and vocalize as I used to, and hear my own sound, and to date not too shabby for my present age, shall we say. But that lifts me up so much, because if anything, I say, I mean, you'll be able to do anything you want today if you can sound like that in the shower. I mean, it means youth. Always it means youth when you sing. It's the youngest you can ever be. It's when you sing and enjoy it. It is something so exhilarating that it's difficult to try to explain it, but I still have it. So I'm grateful for that, because I really love my sound. It is something that I love presenting to me with great love. So it was never a problem presenting it to my extraordinary public. Without hesitation, Maria Callas. Those are my two loves. They sort of half and half in this way. Maria Callas gave me the opera bug to pursue that area of placing my instrument, which I had already found out from me was not ordinary. Where to place it? I took a plane to Chicago during the 50s when she was there for the first time doing Madama Butterfly. And the excitement. Histrionically, she remade opera in the sense that she merged the sound with the action. Now, I am not that kind of electric personality, but she taught me to fit my own movements, my own acceptance of claiming center stage from her own doing that. And it was one of the most exciting experiences I've ever known. Also, I think it was the same year. That year also, I was in the audience to connect my first inspiration artistically, because she was on stage at the Metropolitan Opera, and I was fortunate enough to be in the audience and see her dignity once again, as I was sure this was what I wanted to pursue as a career. And she stood there, Anderson, and she sang with strength that was even more, with dignity that was even more, with excitement that was even more, personally for me that night. And I knew I'm leaving from this audience and I'm going down there, and I know it is very much because of her. And I am going to be standing where she was singing tonight. And it worked out pretty good. I never talk about difficulties. Once the success is there, it is not only boring, it is exasperating to think about all you need to do is the achieving. Mother and Daddy told my brother and myself, and it is exemplary, because in two families, you have a brigadier general and a not too shabby vocal opera artist. One family. No achievement has nothing except what it's supposed to be. It has no color. It has no religion. It has you and your God-given talent. I want you to go out of this door and use it. Never let anything negative be in the way of your focus to achieve. It has been my mantra. It is so boring to hear people whine about everything is so hard. No, thank you. I'm not the person to do that, because difficulties are rather private, I think. And so if you want to share them with someone, it is your privilege. But it really is, it sounds like whining to me. In the lunch hour, when he was here in 55 with the Berliner Philharmoniker, he heard me sing, moved my beloved David, which is my other great marriage, my most successful one, from the piano, and started to play for me himself. Obviously liked the sound, and from then on, we were not only just friends, but musical and artistic, shall we say, linked in a way. It was exciting to be with Maestro von Karajan, because when he came into the, shall we say, the position of director in the festivals and also at the Wien Staatsoper, the groundbreaking was even more exciting because he chose me as his Donn'Anna in Don Giovanni. He chose me, and that means me and my voice, what I mean, for his Leonora in I Trovatori. He chose me for his Tosca in Wien at the Staatsoper. So it was kind of exciting, shall we say. And he chose me for his recording for Carmen because he thought, why not have some fun? Then a Christmas recording, which is the only Christmas music he ever listened to every year, once a year, which I consider one of the finest moments in my entire life. There were so many moments. It was he who was pivotal in establishing my international career. It was immediately after the Wien Staatsoper and the Salzburg Festival that Bing invited me to sing at the Metropolitan Opera. Leading with the attention given me through his baton to Maestro's my exposure with him, I sang in London, I sang in Russia, I sang in Berlin, I sang, as I said, in Vienna, I sang in La Scala. The word was out, here's a voice that may not be too bad. And this broadened the entire extension of my scope because I was happily and proudly homegrown, but it extended it so that it brought me, and also Bing, to the Arena di Verona, where a great colleague of mine, whose voice still rings in my ears, the incredible Franco Corelli. And that's when he wanted the both of us, he told us backstage, he wanted us to make a duo debut at the Metropolitan Opera in I Trovatori, which was what we were singing that night. So it all worked out, and it was because of Maestro von Karajan who gave me the first downbeat, shall we say, for this kind of expanded and extravagant exposure. I can't even put that into words, my dear, because if you want to talk about, I wouldn't say triumphs, but triumphs are things that you think that, triumph sounds stagnant to me because it means that you got somewhere and you stopped there. But excitement and appreciation for beginning with James Anthony and Catherine Baker Viola Price was what I felt first. And I felt so totally American. That's the only way I can describe it. So richly American. My country, with all of the, I know I had a lot of successes there, but my country gave me this opportunity in this space, and I was thrilled beyond belief. But added to it, because of the exposure in Europe, I was so prepared that I stayed and stayed and stayed. I had roles that were so polished, and I deliberately was happy that it was not my most beloved role for many, many significant reasons. It was I Trovatori, because that stretched being American to me farther than making anything an accepted debut. It worked brilliantly. I still see Corelli and all of us marching from the wings of this great opera house. I felt that I had conquered the world that night because my country gave me that space, and I claimed it, and I will never, ever, ever forget it. Well, Miss Kimball used to have her students, and she called us all by different flowers. You know, I was her American Beauty Rose, not too shabby. And Barber John Coleman Minotti, a whole group, Virgil Thompson, I mean, legendary names, were all her friends. And she's, my friend, then I want you to hear my beautiful young artist. And she would have a soiree in her living room, and we would all show what we had. And Barber, as did Maestro von Karajan, had, shall we say, a love affair with my voice from then on. And he wanted me to go when I went to Rome, because he had written this extraordinary cycle. And one thing that was wonderful about the early training that we received at Juilliard, you were taught early on to be very ambidextrous. In other words, and in my case, that was much more, very significant, because I would never, until later, have aspired to be an opera artist. So we were taught to be what I called three-pronged. At least I learned to be three-pronged with this instrument which I had already become so extraordinarily in love with myself and acquainted with. I can tell you even now, as I did in my entire career, recital, opera, or orchestra, exactly how I will sound at 8 o'clock that night. That's the attention I still have. I gave my body, because the body is the vessel. I wouldn't say I was lacking up. I would never have anything interfere with jeopardizing me being 150%, if I could be, when I was to perform. It can be done. It can be done with great pleasure. Being ambidextrous means, especially for me, I was available with the unique timbre of my instrument and where it went in a real vocal point of view, and the repertoire they could cover. Not just opera, but orchestral performances and recitals. So it was three-pronged. When Sam wrote this cycle, it was around that sound that he heard, which led to probably to a really, really magnificent moment in my life. Again, a proud American moment, a very proud American moment. And that is to open the new Met. That's how this started. It started with Sam Barber and the Hermit songs and doing different things in recital. I almost never gave a recital without his literature on it. Later on, when shall we say, the opening conversations began about who would open this great house that we're sitting in today, there were several names that came. Samuel Barber seemed to lean toward myself. And he wrote the literature, which I was pleased to tour with later on because orchestras love it. He wrote a special orchestra suite with both the arias for me to perform. It was, for me, an extraordinary moment. It enabled me to endure things I cannot possibly tell you, with so many things going on around me. That's what I mean by focus. Nothing was going to interfere with my being at my best to claim that space given to me again by my country, this time even in a more poignant sense. And apparently, it really worked out. Speaking of difficulties, that's why I don't want to talk about those, because that would take away from what I'm telling you about that moment. There were millions of things that were negative, but it didn't get in the way of what I'm saying about how important it was for me, and the men upstairs and my country had sent me there, and I had nothing else on my mind except to be the very best, so that years later, the young ones after me perhaps, I would be able to do what Marion Anderson did for me. I don't mean en couleur, I mean artistically speaking. It was broader than that, always was. That's what this country is about. And for me to really have that space Nothing will keep me from being as successful as possible. It's an enjoyment to be successful. I had the most wonderful friend and sort of second mother, my housekeeper, who was an extraordinary cook. Samuel never missed an opportunity to have dinner at the house. That goes for Maestro von Karajan and Sir Rudolph Bing. Her cuisine was out of sight, shall we say. How can I put it? Sam wrote some of the most important parts of the opera at home in my house. With me at the piano, I said, try this. I want this because I know this tessitura will fit you fine. So I don't want to put the ink permanent until I know you. And I'm happy to say that nosebleed country has always been my, up is where sopranos are and tenors. Without that, it's not really, it's not very exciting. And he said, oh, fine. Then I will write this on this page. Then that night we were sitting there, more fried chicken and macaroni pie that Lulu gave Sam, the more he wrote, which meant that when he left, the ink wasn't even dry. It was so much fun. Oh, wow, yes, who also writes very much in nosebleed country. I love Lee, and I think my successful marriage, I would say, was my wonderful years with my beloved friend and pianist, David Garvey. We were linked as the artistic qualities merged between Maestro von Karajan and myself. It's a musical thing. It's something intangible. It just happens. And during that time, when we were making the programs for our recital, David brought for the first time a group of songs from Lee Hoiby, and I fell in love with him. It was just the way he writes, and from then on, he was on my program often. One of my proudest moments was, which he can have in my discography, is that his songs, I was absolutely thrilled to death. I sang in 1991 at Carnegie Hall. I sang all of the wonderful things that I'd done, and of course my opera segments received grandiose, but to hear this wonderful composer, as with Sam, just received an extraordinary standing ovation from just the beauty of the songs, and also, as I said, the focus and the joy that I had singing them. My entertainment is, this is shameless. My entertainment now, having delivered it, thanks to my beloved brother, who, since I asked him to be my manager, has longed for his tours of duty, with or without his medals, since he's been mixed up with an opera singer, his sister or not. However, he and a wonderful gentleman had my discography, my whole life I'm listening to now. They choreographed what is called the Red Book, and 3 other segments. They compiled all of my prima donnas, 5s together in one entity. It's like listening to my life. And some of the things I'm understanding, even at his great sacrifice of his, it's like being introduced to myself. I'm beginning to understand what maybe my public meant. And it's not bad. I'm not ashamed to say that. The literature that was covered in my lifetime is a testament to not only my school, definitely to Juilliard, because I did recitals, programs with literature that I learned, Joseph Marx, Brahms, not as much Brahms as Strauss, Schubert. I mean, it was what a conservative should be like, music should be like. It was geared to succeed. And now I'm sitting there, I'm listening to this rendition from Old Paint here, and I think it's really quite beautiful, and stylistically where it should be, and vocally what I've just been saying, which I say to the kids, with the focus where everything belonged, but it's the joie de chant that I have, that I'm listening to, the joy of singing that I have that is astounding me. In whatever literature that I'm doing, operatic or whatever literature, it is the fun I was having singing that I'm listening to that is making me happier than I ever thought I could possibly be. It was actually the role itself. Also, the idea came from a gentleman who, as I said, helped to choreograph, wonderful, and a musicologist and music who appreciates my performances from long back. His name is Daniel Gus. He was at BMG when they transferred my literature to work with my brother. And he submitted the idea, and I thought it was an absolutely wonderful, for many reasons, particularly for my kids in my family, which I borrow from my brother and his kids. One of who is named for me, Leontyne, and I wanted something to introduce them maybe to what their aunt does, you know. And I, speaking it, was able to speak my version of singing it. And his, shall we say, merging of the two, really, I found really very exciting, because it was the way I felt when I was singing, and to verbalize that. It was from the standpoint that I never, and perhaps AIDA may be my operatic legacy for many reasons, but I'm thrilled to say and happy that it is for the obvious, because my skin was my costume. I was allowed freedoms with her, because she was and still is very much me. It was the way I felt as a human being, the way I was as a person, merged with me as a singer. I think that's why she's never presented a vocal problem for me, because of these mergings. And to be able to finally express, not just vocally, but with words, that she was a princess, as was Amneris, never a slave. The only time I ever bowed during my performances of AIDA was when my father, King Amonasro, arrived. It's a subtle thing, but it says a lot. I never quite crawled, because I always believed that Amneris, being a princess, chose me as her maidservant for reasons that only she and I could explain. And that was incorporated in my interpretation of the strength, I think, of AIDA, which may be my operatic legacy. And also the ease that I found doing her, because she was always the way I felt as a human being. Always where I was, not just as a singer, but as a person. Samuel Shartonoff, Maestro Peter Hermann Adler, and Sarnoff at NBC had this idea, particularly Shartonoff and Maestro Adler, to present opera in English to the masses. Well, I just happened to be on the scene. So I was chosen again, a major groundbreaker, to do Tosca on television in my country. Even at that time, my own hometown wouldn't refuse to. This is not difficult, it's just something that was erased as soon as Cleopatra came on the scene. So I'm not complaining. I'm just showing you how things can be in this great country. Things move always, ever forward. And if you are an American, you move with them, because there's no other way, you know. And I will never forget wonderful David Polizzi, and I will never forget that it was such an astounding experience. Then after that, nobody gave one single hoot. That is, I think, what they say pioneering. Groundbreaking is. You know, it's like everything else. You get on with it once it's done, and build from it. There have been many times, some of which I have elaborated on this evening, but none more significant to me in that moment to speak about a really significant time in my country. As a patriot, which I am proud to say I am, I have had times when I wouldn't say it was hard to sing, but I was so overwhelmed at that particular moment that I still find it difficult to speak about. It is I don't think it's something that I can't expound on it. It happened, and we're moving on. That's the only thing I can say about it. For me, there are no compromises if you want to be the best you can be. There are no compromises, particularly for being in this, what a lot of people say, esoteric form. This bravura form of performing. Let's just take opera. It needs all of you to be delivered. It needs everything you have, but you must enjoy giving everything you have. You must enjoy enveloping the love that will come back to you. If you don't give it, you won't get it. If there's one thing an audience knows, it's when you are not there fully for them. You cannot ever fool them. Because the voice in singing is so human, it is a giving of you. So if you're stingy, they're stingy, because they don't feel anything. And singing is making you feel. It's human. And having an absolute fabulous time personally doing it. Talking about it now. I mean, you know, it's an outward thing. And in opera, the composers fixed it so you can't cheat. The ones that I sang. I mean, my big buddy, Giuseppe Verdi, fixed it so in the area that I really, shall we say, delivered, it was as if being anointed by him. That's the kind of fun I had. It should not be something like this. It always has to be like that. That's the only way the audience can feel the warmth and feel you. It's a very special thing. But opera is the magnificent area of it. It is the grande dame of expression, of modes of expression. And just thinking about it, it's not something you go this way. It is out here, you know. It's like, and be willing. It's also sometimes, you know, in opera, it's so magnificent and glittering. I don't mean in the sham. I mean and where you feel, are you ready? Here I come. And It also is tightrope walking, but you must be excited to do it. The thrill is not to fall, to go all the way on that rock and succeed at the end. But it's not a tense art form. If you're tense, don't go there. I can tell the kids. If you want to really express all of you with your voice and you and your voice, go to opera. It's a culmination of all the arts, all together. But you are the main event. The chords are the main event. You are the artist that it's about. You gotta have your singing there, and preferably great singing. It was in my day.